positioning around the CPI events the last few months. It's been a really consistent pattern where market seems to sort of rally into the CPI. People kind of get excited about the prospects of a more dovish number. Maybe the day before CPI, if they begin to sort of sell off a little bit. CPI hits, and then they crater, right? And so I'm just wondering, are you observing sort of a more of a positioning effect where there's still a lot of bullish underlying, say, retail sentiment that are positioning in maybe individual positions coming into these more sort of FOMO sentiment oriented flows, speculating on, a V recovery at some point when CPI begins to roll over, so are we sort of seeing the opposite effect of what we saw historically during the sort of Brexit and Trump type events, right, where people were like speculatively overly bullish, and then we went the other direction?
Yeah, no, that's, I think, a very astute point. I think you can't underestimate the importance, and this has been true for a couple of years now, of retail and speculative activity in this market. 1 day to expiration options have completely exploded in the S&P 500. They are now the majority of the volume in those products on most days, not all days, but on most days. And that's all speculative directional trades that has secondary effects, as many people know, gamma feedback loops, et cetera, that can become self-fulfilling prophecies, right, in these markets. On top of that, what's driving that? The same thing that drove it in 2020. Everybody thinks, we actually had a little exchange today on Twitter about this, Meb Faber and I. But the reality is that your average median person has much more money in their balance sheets, despite markets not performing well. People are getting inflows because they're getting wages are going up. They're getting some type of, whether it's debt forgiveness or other things, they're getting support from government. And so a lot of that money is going into speculative activity still in the markets. And now add to that markets are down and yields are up. There's a perceived, this is a good opportunity to kind of put money back to work, much better than it was a year ago. And you get significant inflows from retail. If you draw a graph against drawdowns in the market for the last 40 years, and you look at flows from retail, right? They're usually at this point dramatically negative.
Yes.
They're going out the door. And that's quite the opposite in this market. We're actually seeing consistent positive inflows, significant, right, from retail and broadly mom and pop. And again, that's that demand side economics at work. We haven't seen that for 40 years. That's what led to kind of that speculative, kind of the meme craze and the blow off top we kind of saw up to 4,800 last couple of years. But it's still alive and well underneath this market. And so if it wasn't for that, I think there'd be a lot worse kind of flows and things would have had much bigger problems. So important to note that is playing a significant role in these kind of spikes up, squeezing of the shorts, which are tend to be hedge funds with retail still kind of piling in, and not just retail meaning mom and pop, but also speculative entities that are riding on the back of some of these flows as well. So that's definitely playing a significant role, and part of why realized vol has been much higher to the upside of the downside, and why, not surprisingly, skew is flattening, because guess what? Calls are really where you want the vol exposure in this market. And to your final point, that we kind of referred to this briefly, but when skew is flatter and people are more broadly into calls than puts, then some of this decay, right, at least in parts of the market, these Von and Charm effects can actually go the other way. My personal opinion is those bond and term flows on a structural index level are still consistently positive. But given a bad piece of news, which CPI has broadly been bad every single time so far, given a balance of power that's much more balanced, that can lead to the opposite effect, as you mentioned.